With the pro-Palestine protests continuing at Columbia University, the NYPD says it's increasing security on campus. President Biden announces $7 billion for new solar-powered projects and new restrictions on drilling for oil. The moves have Republicans fuming. We'll tell you why. Former President Trump won't have to pay more than that $175 million for his bond in the New York civil fraud case, but he does have to agree to certain conditions. A Christian military veteran destroys a satanic altar and is now facing 5 years in prison. NTD's Daniel Monahan speaks with a newspaper editor alleging this is linked with billionaire George Soros. What is RFK Jr.'s future as an independent candidate in the 2024 election after his family members endorsed President Biden? We'll have analysis. President Biden's EV agenda could be having unintended consequences. We hear from a journalist who's covered energy issues for more than 30 years to learn more. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephanie Cox. Due to the ongoing pro-Palestine protests at Columbia University, administrators are having students take classes online today. The announcement comes at the start of the Jewish holiday of Passover, which begins tonight. Pro-Israel organizations have also started counter-protests. Police say protests like these are popping up across college campuses nationwide, forcing schools to set up security. During a press conference this morning, commissioners with the NYPD said the protests on the private college campus are fine as long as they're safe.
Any kind of violence is not going to be tolerated. Any kind of property damage is not going to be tolerated. Any sort of criminality is not going to be tolerated. And that includes harassment or threats or menacing or stalking or anything like that that is not protected by the First Amendment.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul and New York City Mayor Eric Adams both denouncing calls for violence against Jews. Adams said he was horrified and disgusted with the anti-Semitism spewed at and around Columbia. He says NYPD officers will not hesitate to arrest anyone found to be breaking the law. Police were called last Thursday to quell pro-Palestinian protesters who set up a tent encampment in the middle of campus. Commissioners say they're working with Columbia University to create safe areas around the campus for students. And today, New York congressmen held a rally at Columbia University to protect Jewish students. NTD's Fiona G. was there and has that story.
Right here across the street from one of our finest institutions that at this point has been taken over by terrorists. That's what these people are. They're terrorists. If you're a pro-terrorist, you're a terrorist.
A month after October 7th, and watched a 21-minute video, raw footage, unedited, of the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7th, and listened to a young Palestinian man call home to his parents to say how he butchered 10 Jews with his bare hands. That level of hatred is taught. It's taught in the schools in Gaza. And unfortunately, we see it being taught on schools in America.
I'm here on the streets right outside Columbia University, where you can see behind me protests are still happening. Earlier today, there was a rally right here to protect Jewish students, where congressmen and other speakers called for university officials to take accountability and for Hamas to surrender. I had a chance to speak with some Columbia University students, as well as members of the general public, to find out more about the atmosphere here in the city right now.
Yeah, for over 5 days now, students at Columbia have been having an encampment on campus. They are demanding divestment of their university from being complicit in Israel's crimes. They are demanding an end to the genocide of Palestinians.
They have been chanting stuff like, burn Tel Aviv to the ground, which is where I'm from, so that's of course very concerning. Asking, telling Zionists to leave campus, which is also pretty scary.
So I've actually been shooting content all over. I'm a journalism student here, and I've been shooting content all day, and I've seen A number of people have shown up to try to sort of like assert their place on campus, unfortunately, and so there's like even within the encampment today, which has mostly been peaceful up to this point, there were several people who just sort of shoved their way onto the encampment and are like kind of like asserting their place as like, oh, we are allowed to be here, which I get. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of anger happening.
And finally, how does this make you feel?
Just unrest, scared for my future, scared for the future of college students.
I'm scared for America. These people are just now being arrested, and the way that they're acting is insane.
Uncertainty and unrest continue on college campuses across the country. Columbia University announced today that all classes would be moved online in response to the protests, and over 40 students at Yale University were arrested in connection with protests. I'm Fiona G., NTD News.
Former President Trump's $175 million bond is safe in his New York civil fraud case. The court has just approved it. That's despite New York Attorney General Letitia James questioning its sufficiency. Knight Specialty Insurance issued the bond to secure Trump's compliance with a $454 million judgment. Judge Arthur Engoron ruled that Trump inflated his net worth and real estate assets to get better terms from banks and insurers. After a lengthy effort, Trump managed to secure a reduced bond while he appeals. James then raised doubts about the bond provider. The court just ruled that the provider has to keep the bond in full in cash and provide a guarantee of that to James every month. And the House approved a long-awaited funding bill that includes aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. The bill faced a lengthy challenge in the chamber and nearly cost Speaker Mike Johnson his job. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more.
The package includes $95 billion in foreign aid. Democrats and Republicans came together to ensure its passage Saturday. More than $60 billion will go to Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky had been calling on lawmakers to pass the much-needed package.
We appreciate every manifestation of support for our state and independence, our people, and our lives, which Russia wants to bury in ruins. America has shown its leadership from the first days of this war.
House Speaker Mike Johnson faced backlash from his party when he finally brought up the package last week. Some Republicans have criticized spending on foreign aid amidst increasing national debt. Another bill favored by conservatives that instead focused on the southern border was voted down. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene renewed her call for Johnson to resign after the aid package was passed. Hardline conservatives gave Johnson flack for pushing the aid bill without any provisions for border security, an issue central to House Republicans. But other members of Congress applauded Johnson's leadership.
By what he did today, it took a lot of guts in the face of the opposition. But he knows that if we didn't do this, the consequences would have been severe.
Ukraine and Russia have been in a stalemate since the start of the year. The funding comes as Ukraine warns that Russia is preparing for new attacks.
It's significant for us. And of course, no doubt that it's increased our odds to defeat the aggressors.
The package also includes billions in aid for Israel as tensions in the region heat up. Several Democrats voted against the measure. Israel's war against Hamas has earned the Biden administration some scorn from within the Democratic Party. They've called for the U.S. to stop its funding of Israel as the death toll in Gaza rises. The package will also include $8.1 billion to Taiwan and other Indo-Pacific allies. It also includes a measure that imposes new limits on the Chinese-owned social media app TikTok. The package now proceeds to the Democratic majority Senate. The Senate is expected to pass the measure this week, sending it to President Biden to sign into law. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
And President Biden has a big name endorsement in his back pocket from the Kennedy family. That's as a third-party wildcard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running a campaign that could tip the 2024 election to former President Trump. Joining us now for more on this story is Jeff Crouere. He's a political analyst and TV and radio host. Jeff, good to see you. To begin, what is the Kennedy family's influence on the Democratic Party, and what effect could their endorsements have on Biden's campaign?
Well, thanks for having me. The Kennedy family is royalty in the Democratic Party. I mean, the Kennedy family, of course, is treated as a family that deserves respect from the entire party. You had, of course, JFK, RFK, Ted Kennedy, so many Kennedys in elected office. So the real controversy and drama is RFK Jr. running as an independent. And then the wild part is he going to take more from Trump? Is he going to take more from Biden? So what the Democrats are trying to do is shore up that base. And they've got the sister of RFK coming out strongly for Joe Biden. And they're trying to rally as many Kennedy family members to really say, no, forget that RFK Jr. is running. We need to stick Democrat and stay with Joe Biden. So I think the family itself is going to go with Biden. But those who love the Kennedys, those who always have been admirers of RFK and JFK, I'm sure some of those among the public will go with RFK Jr.
And as we know, Kennedy Jr. is running as an independent. Now he's officially on the ballot in Utah, and the campaign has said that it has collected enough signatures to appear on the ballot in Hawaii, Idaho, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and now Iowa. So why are the Kennedys endorsing Biden when RFK Jr. is running?
They're worried that RFK Jr. is going to take votes away from Joe Biden and give the election to Donald Trump. And they're trying to prevent that from happening by telling Democrats, do not vote for our brother, do not vote for our cousin, don't vote for RFK Jr., stay with Joe Biden. The problem is, of course, that RFK Jr. has an appeal to younger voters and traditional Democratic voters that Joe Biden doesn't have. So he's going to peel off some of those. But I would also contend that he's going to take some votes from Donald Trump because of his anti-vaccine position. He's also changed his views on the border and the Ukraine war and some other issues to be in line with some other folks who would not be traditional liberals. So he is really going to be a wild card. It's going to be very interesting to see. I've seen some poll data showing that he's going to take more from Biden, and I've seen some other poll data showing that he's going to take more from Trump. So I think we'll just have to see how the campaign develops and where he's going to make his mark.
Yeah, polling has got pretty interesting in terms of Kennedy Jr.'s impact on both of those campaigns. Just looking at the Kennedys more generally, what types of candidates have they endorsed in the past?
All liberals, all Democrats, all traditional progressives that you would expect a Democrat to endorse. So they have been very loyal Democrats, for decades. So what RFK Jr. is doing is getting the family upset because he is now running. He left the Democrat Party and is running as an independent. Now, remember, when he started his race, he was a Democrat. But then he said, hey, I can't be treated fairly. It's not going to be an even match. So I'm going to run as an independent. And that was really his only hope because there was no way the Democrats were going to give the nomination to anybody other than Joe Biden. So when he moved to the independent status, I think that's when the family became alarmed. And that's why you see them coming out aggressively for Joe Biden. So it's a fascinating development. And then his running mate is more of a liberal. So she is someone that I think will draw maybe some more votes from the Democrats. But then some of his positions are positions that conservatives like. So it's a real interesting phenomenon. I think he's going to be the most significant third-party candidate since Ross Perot.
And we'll hopefully keep watching that closely with you in the coming weeks and months. Thank you so much, Jeff Crouere. Great to speak with you.
Thank you.
Next up, a former congressional candidate is now facing 5 years in prison for damaging a satanic altar. NTD's Daniel Monahan discusses the case with the editor of a publication called The Sentinel.
The satanic altar set up by the Satanic Temple of Iowa depicted the idol Baphomet. The display caused outrage, especially during the holidays when it coincided with a nativity scene. Christian veteran Michael Cassidy went from his home state of Mississippi up to Iowa and destroyed the statue, knocking it down and beheading it. He then turned himself in to the Capitol Police. He stated at the time that, "My actions were guided by my faith, not by my government rules." Sentinel editor Ben Zeisloft, who originally broke the story, reacts.
Did the founders really want just open displays of Satanism literally in the center of the public square as part of the culture of free expression, free religion, free speech that we have in the United States? And Michael himself told me in our first interview that no, he didn't think that's what the founders had in mind because Satan is a figure that represents evil.
Cassidy was initially charged with misdemeanor criminal mischief, but the charges were later enhanced by Polk County Attorney Kimberly Graham, a Democrat, to a felony third-degree hate charge. He now faces 5 years in prison. The Sentinel recently reported a link between billionaire George Soros and Polk County Attorney Kimberly Graham. Sentinel editor Ben Zeisloff says Graham has received substantial campaign contributions from Soros-affiliated groups. He specifically cites over $300,000 in campaign contributions from the Justice and Public Safety PAC, an entity funded by George Soros.
He's funding people who he knows will advance his agenda. And usually it's all it means is they throw the book at conservatives, at Christians, at people who are against a more progressive vision of society. And they don't prosecute violent criminals, drug offenders, things of that nature.
Critics say Soros-funded prosecutors and their so-called progressive criminal justice policies are putting people in danger by keeping criminals on the streets.
It's a pretty depressing reality across the United States that a single billionaire, and obviously other groups too, are able to funnel money into individual prosecutors who therefore make their communities less safe just by not enforcing the rule of law.
Cassidy's lawyer has filed a motion to dismiss the hate crime charges, claiming the Satanic Temple isn't a legitimate religion under Iowa law and that hate crime laws shouldn't penalize thoughts. Cassidy says he acted to protest government endorsement of anti-Christian symbols. A ruling on whether the hate crime charges will stand should come this week. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
When we come back, former President Trump's media company will get a $1 billion windfall from shares of his media company, Truth Social. NTD's Don Ma has the story coming up in his business brief. And President Biden's EV agenda is having some unintended consequences. NTD speaks with a journalist who's covered energy issues for more than 30 years. That and more after the break.
How'd it happen?
She showed up dead on arrival.
This never gets easier.
It does when you call CarShield before your car breaks down. Look at these prices. The camshaft, transmission, engine.
Don't people know? A plan through CarShield could protect up to 5,000 parts and systems.
You hate to see it.
An out-of-warranty car is going to break down eventually.
Right, which is why they need a plan through CarShield. Those expensive repair bills get paid and at the mechanic of their choice. They're notifying the family.
Poor guy. He doesn't even know what's coming.
Another victim of senselessly expensive repair bills. Can't save them all.
But we can keep trying. Didn't have to end this way. If he'd have just called CarShield before his car broke down.
Exactly.
Protect yourself from the unprecedented rise in cost for parts and repairs. Call now to save money with your price lock guarantee. Call 800-429-5128.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
It looks like former President Trump is about to get another billion-dollar windfall, and a U.S. official says America is ahead of China in semiconductors. Here's NTD's Don Ma with today's Business Brief.
Thank you very much, Steph. So today I wanted to talk to you about three things here. First, former President Donald Trump is on the very cusp of scoring a major financial bonanza. So this is as long as Trump Media Technology Group's share price is stable enough. By Tuesday's closing bell, Trump is on track to receive another 36 million shares as the owner of Truth Social. Now, this milestone is on track to be hit after market closes on Tuesday. Those new shares Trump is in line to receive would be valued at around $1.3 billion at current prices. Although Trump's media share price has been cut in half since peaking on March 27th, still trading comfortably above levels that would trigger certain performance provisions in the original merger agreement. Meanwhile, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said on Sunday that U.S. curbs on shipments to telecom equipment giant Huawei are working. She says in an interview with CBS News 60 Minutes that China is behind the U.S. on semiconductors, saying that, quote, "It's years behind what we have in the United States. We have the most sophisticated semiconductors in the world. China doesn't. We've out-innovated China." Huawei, by the way, was added to the entity list in 2019 amid fears it could spy on Americans, forcing its U.S. suppliers to seek a difficult-to-obtain license to ship to it. Now, Raimondo added that, quote, "It tells me the export controls are working because that chip is not nearly as good." And finally, just one more thing. U.S. borrowers on lower incomes are increasingly struggling to keep up with their loan payments. And this is according to recent data and bank executives. And because of this, it's prompting banks to become more cautious about giving out credit cards and car loans. So a number of growing Americans, it seems, have been seeing their savings dwindle as prices squeeze budgets while interest rates stay high, and bankers and economists are saying this as well. Now, the deterioration in household finances for those earning less than $45,000 a year contrasts sharply with those with financial resilience, which is among the higher earning income families. That's all from me, Steph. Back to you.
Thanks, Don. Next up, President Biden's EV agenda is meant to address climate concerns, but his policies are having some unintended consequences. NTD's Andrew Thomas spoke with a fellow journalist who's covered energy issues for more than 30 years to learn more.
Why do you call President Biden's EV policies, quote, a type of class warfare?
Well, I mean, you look at who buys electric vehicles. I mean, it's very clear, Andrew, when you look at the demographics of the people who are buying electric vehicles, it's not the poor and the middle class. I mean, you can do this yourself by, driving through the barrio, driving through low-income neighborhoods. There are no Teslas in those neighborhoods. And why is that? It's very clear. The average buyer for an electric vehicle, the average household income for an electric vehicle buyer is on the order of $120,000 to $130,000 per year. That's nearly 2x the national average. And further, and what's the profile of the average EV buyer? It's a white male in his 50s and 60s who lives in a heavily Democratic city or county. So the whole EV push is only appealing to a very narrow niche of the auto buying public, and it completely ignores the need for low-cost transportation for the poor and the middle class, and particularly the working class.
What kind of domestic and foreign policy implications do these EV policies have?
this entire effort will make the U.S. auto sector more beholden and more dependent on China. Remember, 90% of the neodymium iron boron magnets that are produced globally are produced in China. These are the high-strength magnets that are needed to make EVs. Look at the International Energy Agency's report from 2021, where they say China dominates the entire battery supply chain for electric vehicles. I'm not anti-China. I'm not a China basher. But the idea that, I mean, why in the name of Peter, Paul, and Mary would this administration want to make the American auto sector dependent on Chinese supply chains? It makes no sense whatsoever.
What impact will Biden's EV policies have on the auto industry just more generally?
Last year, Ford lost almost $65,000 for every EV they sold. And we're already seeing the wreckage. I mean, the latest numbers from, I think it was Gallup, they just came out earlier this month, showed that over a 1-year period, the number of people who say they will not buy an electric vehicle increased by 7 percentage points. This is just a massive misplaced bet by both the administration and the automakers that thinking, oh, people are suddenly going to buy electric vehicles. They aren't, they won't. And this is going to be a very expensive failure for American automakers. And I think here's my wager that taxpayers are going to very soon, the automakers are going to come to the federal government saying, hey, you made us, you mandated us to make all these vehicles. Now we need a bailout.
Great. Well, Robert, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephanie Cox. Stay tuned for more news on NTD's Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. See you tomorrow.